Howdy guys. A little bit of a setback with the old Grundig project over the holiday season. I started looking into why the transformer was running hot. One of the things I found which I wanted to check was that the actual mains on-off switch never actually closed properly and would sit between about 40 and 400 ohms depending on how you wiggle the contacts, so I figured to sort that out. The on-off switch sits down this little hole here, mounted sideways through that little hole, and there is then a metal bracket which you can just barely see down there, which loops over the switch lever and is held in a spring, which in turn is connected to this mechanism here. Yeah, getting it out wasn't all that easy, but I got it out. I gave it a good spray with all sorts of things, and I got it better, not perfect, but as you can see, the top of this switch lever is custom formed, unlikely to get a replacement, an exact replacement anywhere. So I thought it's as good as it can be, so I'll put it back in and we'll put it all back together. So as you can imagine, getting it in here and getting the nut on the other end and tightening it all up can be a little bit of a test of one's patience. However, we got it all in, and as I tightened it up, there was a cracking sound, and this half of the switch basically just exploded or broke away, and various internal bits went flying. So, yeah, that was not a good moment. So, we have to see where we go from here. So, a couple of options. Option A, the most, I guess, ambitious one, is to see if I can, let me just line up all the pieces here. See if I can put this back together. I believe that's all the bits. I don't think there's anything that flew that I didn't catch. So that's, if you like, plan A. That and the most optimistic. Not sure if that'll work. Then plan B is I've got similar switches. They're exactly the same form factor, except obviously the activating lever is completely different. And so this has got a metal one, which I would have to reshape to look like, right, so which I would have to reshape to look like that one, and just in case I also got a plastic one, which again is exactly the same form factor, but has the same problem. The radical plan, if it ever got that point, would be to see if I could extract this little pin here on the side to take out this complete switch lever and actually transfer that one from this switch into this switch. However, that's probably plan C or D. So let's have a shot with plan A and see if I can glue this thing back together so it'll still work without gluing up the whole mechanism. Right, here is result of first attempt at fixing the switch itself, the original. So I put all the pieces back together, and then I just delicately wicked some very thin super glue into the joint of the casing, being totally paranoid that it would glue up the works inside as well, but I think I got away with it. However, I wasn't comfy with that as the strategy for structural soundness, so I decided I needed to make sure this thing wasn't going to come apart again. So I just made a little aluminium bracket, which I put around it, and it's liberally soaked with regular araldite. So we'll leave that to cure for 24 hours before I go trying to remount it. And continuity wise it seems to work fine, so it's pretty reliable at this point. It goes from fully open to fully closed every time. So yes, we are cautiously optimistic. But before I go rewiring it and putting it back in, I'll leave it to cure up for 24 hours. While I'm going to all the trouble with this on-off switch, I thought I'll rewire the whole input section so I can tidy all this up. So I'm going to put the switch in the live rather than in the neutral. And since the resistor, the dropper resistor that was across here is now relocated, if I tidy it all up, I can get rid of that whole Paxilin strip across the top there and make it much smaller and neater. You can actually see how the heat from the previous resistor has burned one of the windings from the primary of the mains transformer. So we can tidy all that up and make it look a lot nicer, get rid of all that stuff on the top there, and hopefully have it safer as well, because I'll put the switch in the live. Okay, here is the MacGyvered switch reinserted and the activating mechanism reconnected. And getting that little spring back on there, this little guy here, was good fun. So all I can say is, having not used them for probably 40 years, I'm certainly glad I didn't throw away my set of spring hooks that I used to use years ago when I had to fix mechanical adding machines. Right, so the way this works now, I've got rid of that ugly sort of a Paxilin thing that used to mount the dropper resistor, and so the main fuse panel looks a lot smaller and neater. So the mains comes in, goes off to the one pole of the on-off switch, comes back from the on-off switch, goes to one side of the fuse, the other side of the fuse comes back via this lead to one end of the dropper resistor, and the other end of the dropper resistor comes back here and goes to one side of the 220 volt tap on the transformer. The neutral comes in and just goes directly now to the other side of the 220 volt tap. So, in theory now, things are a lot safer and a lot neater. And as I say, if the switch itself holds out, I'd say we can move on to other things. Probably the next thing is going to be rerouting the cord for how you rotate this, because thanks to Nev on the forum, I now have photographs of how you do this, and so we'll give that a shot and make sure that's all working properly. The other thing I need to do, which I'm not sure if I can or not, is the magic eye, because it's a different physical size to the original, doesn't really line up that well with the hole in the front plate, and so it needs to be pointing up higher. So I don't know if I can bend this bracket around a little bit to get the desired effect or not. So we'll have a look at that as well again in a little while. And here's that fuse panel cleaned up a bit, so it looks halfway decent, even though in theory I intend to build a cover to put over it. And a big thanks to Nev on the VRAD forum, who posted photos of how you string up the cord to make the AM antenna rotate. Not something I would have ever figured out on my own. So that's all in and working properly now. I thought I might need a replacement cord, because the one I made it up to fit the original way the cord ran. But I actually found a longer spring to make up the gap, and so that's the AM antenna done. The other major issue that I found was once I'd got this working and started messing with it, I actually found that when I would attempt to turn the antenna, I'd lose AM, shortwave, whatever, completely. And then if I changed to a different wave band and changed back again, it would reception would come back. So I started getting nervous about, problems with the switch mechanism or whatever. However, again, it turned out to be I didn't have one dry joint on this antenna down lead, but actually both of them are dry jointed. So in this case I had to completely redo this joint here. This one I'd done before, which was the main reason I had no reception in the beginning. But this one was, it seemed like structurally it was okay, but electrically it wasn't okay. And I found that just by tapping on this mounting frame here, I could cause the AM stuff to come and go. Wiggling the wire itself from the antenna didn't do anything, but the minute I messed with this other down lead here, it was clear that that's the problem. So, none of this is going, this one makes me work for it. So, but each step gets us a step closer, and all the different wave bands work very reliably now, which is nice. And here it is with the mains wiring all tidied up and as good as I can get it. Transformer still runs quite toasty. I can't find anything on the output side that's loading it unduly. I've tried, for instance, just removing the dial light bulbs to reduce the current consumption. But still runs toasty, and so the only thing I can think of that might help at this point is basically to repot the transformer. It was vibrating rather badly when I first switched it on, and I found the laminations were loose and all these 4 mounting screws were quite loose, so I tightened all them up. But it may be that if it had been running for any length of time with the thing vibrating, that some of the physical isolation and the windings might have been broken down, so repotting it might help. Anyway, that's kind of it at this point. I'd say we're basically as far as we can go with it at this point, so I'll be putting it all back together, and just keep an eye on how the temperature runs once this thing is inside the cabinet.